Don't blink. Blink and you're dead. Don't turn your back. Don't look away and don't blink.
Okay, so the 60th anniversary of Doctor Who is now out, and the latest string of episodes sees a legendary David Tennant returning to the role. It got me thinking back to my favourite Doctor Who episode of all time, which I'm sure many of you are also massive fans of. That is Blink. Often described as being a gateway entry into the Whoniverse, this standalone episode blew my mind when I first watched it back in it's 2007, is that? Dear me. Still though, it's something that stuck with me, and I went back to it more times than any other episode in the series. Everyone I've showed this to has become hooked on the show, and this video is going to be a kind of love letter to the episode that's about lots of timey-wimey wibbly-wobbly stuff. Now interestingly, the entry was pretty much a rush job, with writer Stephen Moffat thinking it was going to be a disaster. He was so caught up in Jekyll that he didn't have time to give this his full focus, and instead decided to throw himself onto what he called a grenade. Now the episode was going to build off the back of a short story titled What I Did on My Christmas Holidays by Sally Sparrow. This featured the titular character being contacted by the Doctor after the Tardis burped him out, writing things under her wallpaper and sending her a videotape with messages in it. These elements provided the basis for the episode, with both becoming plot devices in it. In both, Sally takes the main focus, and I kinda love how the Doctor isn't even really in the episode that much. Up until the end, he's mainly viewed through recordings and used as a plot device that relays information rather than being a big part of the entry. This episode also introduces the terrifying Weeping Angels, who made their Doctor Who debut during this entry. The statuesque enemies weren't as they appeared, and when not being viewed, they were able to move and roam around, hunting their prey. We of course never see them move either, and a lot of the time we'll just cut to them in different positions. It gives you so much to imagine, and the horror is very subtle, with them simply just standing there instead of being on the attack. Statues are of course something we also walk past every day, but knowing that one of these could be hiding something more sinister adds an extra layer of terror to it.
Don't blink. Remember what he said, don't even blink.
Who blinks? I'm too scared to blink.
Now, River Song brought up the Book of Weeping Angels at one point and talked about how they become quantum locked to their statue form once a sentient life form looks at them. This adds so much to the horror of them, and you can't even blink around them, which of course ties into the episode's title itself. Said to be almost as old as the universe, they're vampiric in nature, and the way that they operate by taking their victims, dropping them off in another time period, and then living off the temporal energy that provides. It's a genius concept, and there's something so unnerving about seeing a stationary enemy that could rip you apart, but the only weakness it has is that you're looking at it. Typically when faced with a monster, most people's instinct would be to look away, but you have to remain fixated on them if you want to survive. It's something that I think Moffat really taps into in this entry, with the horror elements being what carries it. However, Moffat said he didn't feel confident that he'd got it right, and from what he said, he just wanted it out the way as quickly as possible. Rushing through the script, it's said to be the quickest piece of writing that he's ever put together, and after doing just 2 drafts, they went into shooting a mere 10 days later. Now the horror elements are felt instantly, and we pick up outside a locked gate in the middle of the night. Here we join Sally, who's much older than her source material counterpart, but she instantly wins you around and basically carries this whole episode. Climbing over the fence which has danger written on it, literally, we watch as she explores an old dilapidated mansion that itself seems lost to time. This eeriness and atmosphere instantly draws you in as you begin to wonder what it is she's up to and what the writing behind the wallpaper means. Now this is what I love about the entry, and there's a mystery to it that makes us as viewers instantly engaged. I think when it comes to other Doctor Who episodes, we kinda know what's going on due to the villains often being long established ones. The Weeping Angels at this point weren't, so we learned things along with the characters, including the messages that were being left from the past. That included Beware the Weeping Angels and an instruction specifically for Sally that said she needed to duck. Still get goosebumps from it, and in hindsight we knew who threw this, but all Sally sees at this point is a statue and a message from the Doctor. Now the way this entry works is it's basically built around the bootstrap paradox, which is something I find myself talking about more and more on the channel. Recently it popped up in Loki Season 2, and it's also featured in things like Dark, Triangle, and a lot more. At its core it involves someone receiving a message, which they then use to inform themselves on how to navigate the future. Normally they record this themselves and then pass it on to the past where the information can be used to get to this point. For example, and yeah, sorry I've said this about 100 times before, but a scientist finds a book detailing how to build a time machine. They then build this and travel back in time to put the book where their past version will find it so the loop can continue. Here though, it goes beyond being just that, with there being multiple items that are used to chronicle it. That includes DVD extras and Easter eggs, which was something that was still pretty recent for the time. You see kids, back in my day, a VHS could only hold a certain amount of data on it. Often when you'd buy them, they'd just have the film on and nothing else. However, when DVDs came out, the amount of data you could put on it greatly expanded, and thus they were able to do not only better sound and picture, but also special features. Sure, my first ever X-Men VHS I had a making of on it, but other than that, it was extremely rare. However, Blink cleverly used this new pot of tech to allow the Doctor to record hidden messages on certain releases. You guys who paid £25 back in the noughties to get The Matrix on DVD, you might remember, because I sure do, that if you clicked on the White Rabbit, you could get an Easter egg, and that's pretty much what all these moments are.
An Easter egg?
Excuse me?
I've often talked at the channel about how one of my favourite films of all time is Ringu, and that centres heavily around a seemingly haunted videotape. Though maybe not intentional, I've always thought that Blink was slightly similar due to the way these old grainy recordings have their own element of horror to them too. There's just something more unsettling about a beat-up recording, and seeing this used for both Sadako and the Doctor really adds to the atmosphere of the episode. Now upon returning home, Sally sees several screens all showing the Doc, but at this point we don't really know what's going on. Heading out with her best friend Kathy Nightingale, they then journey back to the house the next day to see what's happening.
Hey, Sparrow and Nightingale, that so works.
To ITV.
I know.
It is a bit ITV to be fair, and it's at this house that we get our first victim. Realising that the statue is a bit closer to the house, the doorbell then rings, which is when Sally answers it. Discovering a man who's brought a letter, this is of course a reference to the end of Back to the Future 2, with it being specifically told to be delivered to the house at this exact time. It's of course not only giving Sally some information, but it's also getting her out the way while Kathy is consumed. Now it turns out that this is actually from Kathy, who sent the letter through the years to this very moment to explain what was going on. I just love the way that we see the angel creeping up behind Kathy, and just as she's grabbed, we see that the letter is from her in the past.
Give me a name.
She was called Kathy Nightingale.
Get goosebumps again just talking about it, and we sort of see, I don't know, the positive side of the angel's fate. They've often been described as merciful by certain characters, and we see that Kathy still gets a full life, it just happens in the past. Just like, I don't know, maybe invest in Apple love. Either way, she was taken to the 1920s and then writes Sally a letter with photos of all her children, including her daughter Sally. Kind of shows that though she was a victim, she managed to make the most out of it, and I don't know, it's kind of bittersweet. Enraged by it though, Sally runs upstairs and discovers a key which symbolically acts as a way for her to unlock more of the truth. Discovering Kathy's grave, she ends up then going to her brother Larry, who just so happens to work at the DVD store. Boom! You start to see how all the pieces fall together, and he was the one who'd been digging into all the Doctor Who DVD extras. Now here Sally is the key, and throughout the episode we see she has conversations with the DVD. Noting this down, it can then be passed to the Doctor so he can read this side when he's dropped off in the past, and then Sally can interact with it in the future. They can then note things down in the past and then pass it on. Look, it's lots of timey-wimey, wibbly-wobbly stuff, but it's one of the best depictions of time travel that I've ever seen in a TV show. Inspired to go to the police, we see as other victims fall prey to the angels, with Sally almost getting a date with one who gets sent to the past. However, when Billy's introduced, he shows Sally a garage of cars that belong to people who disappeared at the manor. Amongst these cars is also a mysterious-looking phone box, which later gets surrounded by the angels. Although Billy manages to get Sally's phone number, he's sent back to the past after making the mistake of blinking in front of one of the angels. Found by the doctors and Martha back in 1969, he basically gets used as a messenger, and using the number, the man waits almost 40 years to get to the point where he can finally call Sally. Arriving at the hospital, we see how Billy's hung on for dear life, and this is all so he can deliver a message to Sally.
It was raining when we met.
It's the same rain.
Learning that he got into publishing, we discover that he was the one who placed the messages on the DVD, and this is the day that Billy will die. kept going on by this reunion, he plays on a line that we heard earlier in the entry.
Because life is short and you are hot. Drink.
Life is long and you are hot.
I think the real message of this entry is really exemplified by the characters like Billy and Kathy, who show life is what you make it. Sure, the pair, they could have wallowed in the past, but they took the second life they'd been given and used it as a way to make a family. Finding happiness, it kind of shows the beauty in life and that everyone has the opportunity to make something of themselves. Reuniting with Larry at the manor, they then get the full message from the Doctor, which Larry fills in using Sally's bits. Mounting up the tension though, we see as the transcript ends, surmising to the Doctor that the Angels are closing in. However, there is a way to stop them, and the Angels can't observe each other. Realizing they're trapped, Sally and Larry rush into the cellar and discover the Tardis, which the Angels have been planning to feast on due to its temporal energy. In the cellar, we get our final bit of horror for the entry, with the light flickering on and off as the statues close in. This almost strobe-like effect allows them to get closer and closer, and it's such a smart way to ramp up things for the final act. Getting inside the machines through using the key, the DVDs then placed into the Tardis, which sends the machine back to get the Doctor and Martha. It also faces the Tardis out, and the Angels are around them now, so they're stuck in a constant state of being quantum locked due to them all staring at each other. It's such a clever way to defeat them, and from here we jump to 1 year later to see Sally and Larry now running the DVD store. Sally is still unable to let things go though, because she doesn't know how he got the transcript and information. She's collected all this into a folder and case though, but Larry desperately wants her to let go. He's ideally after a relationship, but while this is on her mind, Sally can't move on. Seeing a taxi pull outside though, the Doctor arrives, and Sally rushes out to talk to him in the street. Having no idea who she is though, she realizes it's a version of him that hasn't gone to the 60s yet, but now this folder can be used as a way for him to navigate the events of the episode. Holding Larry's hand, they then return to the shop, and we get the feeling that this is how Larry met Sally.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
However, the terror isn't over yet, and we get a montage of statues around the area, letting us know that the Angels could be anywhere. It's the perfect way to close things out, letting us know that we probably haven't seen the last of them. Although I don't think the other entries involving them lived up to this, it's still a classic in my mind, with everything in it being on a causal loop that creates the groundwork of its own story while walking the path of it. This is how you pull off a time travel story and instantly demonstrate the kind of thing you can get from an episode of Doctor Who. Even without featuring the main character that much, it still shows the power and wonder that he can bring, and it stands as one of my favourite episodes of a TV show ever. I really hope you've enjoyed us going through it and explaining some of the deeper layers to it, the making of things, and just how I feel about the episode as a whole. This was a great trip down memory lane, and I really enjoyed going back through it with all that timey-wimey wibbly-wobbly stuff. Please drop a like on the video if you've enjoyed it as well, and if you want to support the channel as a member of the Spoiler Society, then please click the join button. You get early access to videos every week, just like this one, and it goes such a long way to helping us out. You want to get some heavy spoilers merch, we've also got our t-shirt line located below the video that will let you pick up all kinds of tops like our Theory Time one, House of Dragons stuff, Marvel tees, and a lot more. We drop new designs on there all the time too, so definitely keep an eye out, and if you want something else to watch, we've got a breakdown on screen right now. So lots of things to talk about at the moment, so much going on, so yeah, hopefully you enjoy, see you over there, and yeah, you take care of yourself, mate. Peace.